In my last video, we went over 5 tips to help beginners start their trading careers. In this video, we're going to go over more tips for traders that think they've moved on past the beginner stage into an intermediate and moving on towards advanced stage. In my opinion, an intermediate trader would be anywhere from 30 to 200K. You're really starting to get the hang of things, you've got more items now, and options are unlocking for you. Maybe even trade bots are pestering you more. Before we get into the intermediate tips, as always, subscribe, it helps me a lot. This first tip isn't so much a tip as it is an explanation. It's about rare items. Rare items are a category of item that have incredibly low serial circulation, meaning they're really hard to get. As a result, they don't get traded that often and their demand is awful. The interesting thing about rares though, is that even though they don't get traded that often, and even though their demand is horrible, they are still capable somehow of getting amazing OPs. But that OP doesn't come overnight. It's not uncommon for a rare collector to hold onto their rare items for months or even years before that big payday comes. Rares are a really good long-term investment strategy. So if you know you're going to go off to military or school or something that's going to prevent you from trading for a good long while, my advice would be to stock up on rares and let them sit on your account while you're away. And when you come back, they'll likely be worth more. And the rare collectors will just be drooling at the opportunity to send on your rares and get them back into circulation again. They're also notoriously difficult to value. If we look at Barama Guardian here, it says its value is about 800K, but if we come down and look at the owners, I mean, Stickmaster Luke's not going to be trading his. He's owned it for 12 years. It's just not going to happen. It's likely that I would say pretty much all of these folks aren't either. I don't see Linkamon trading his, and so it's very possible that these are the only available copies, but it appears actually that this guy's hoarding it. And so it's actually probably likely in my estimation that he wants to hoard it, wants to hold on to these, at least for the time being. And so it might be the case that this is the only one currently available, and that's up to him whether or not he wants to trade it in the first place at all. This opens up an avenue for him, because if he knows he's really the owner of the only available Barama Guardian, he can demand, instead of 800K, he can demand $1 million or 1.2 million if he knows what he has. Now that doesn't mean he'll get 1.2 million or $1 million, but it might be the case that after a year or after 2 years or something, someone comes along and wants it bad enough that they're willing to pay that amount for it. One final note on rares is that the wrap tends to be way lower than their perceived value. Here we have Nightmare with a wrap of 40K, but its value is actually estimated to be 140K. And of course, as we've established, the owners would probably be expecting, 200 or 200 plus. So this leads rare collectors to having sort of unimpressive wrap. Don't let that fool you, these are still amazing items. But if this sounds interesting to you, if you think you'd be capable of holding onto items for long periods of time, if you're willing to have unimpressive wrap, and also if having cool, unique, items that there aren't 15 copies of in different colors, like the Valkyrie helm or something. If all of that sounds like a good deal to you, as you start to gain more items and gain more value, rares are unlocked as an option for you as you move into being an intermediate trader. And I think you should consider investing in one or two, or maybe even you can dedicate your account to being a rare collector. Now this next tip might seem elementary to some of you. You might know it already, but if you're moving into becoming an intermediate trader and you don't know it, it's really going to handicap you. And so for the sake of those people, I'm going to go into this and really explain the utility of ROBLOX's Discord server. In my last video, we went over the website and some of the utility we can find there, like the Projected's live update tracker, which you can also find here, but there are some unique qualities about the Discord server as opposed to the website that you might not know about. Two specifically that you need to know about. The first being the discussion updates. When an item is in discussion, it means the ROBLOX valuers are talking about whether or not they should raise or lower an item or keep it where it is, according to proofs that people submit. We'll get into that in a second. But this is a good tool for you, because if you have an item that's going into discussion and you have some sort of an idea of how it's doing, like for example, the other day CWHP was discussion and I happen to know that it's not doing well at all. And if we go back to the actual official value changes, the discussion resulted in it being lowered by about 60K. So if I had seen this discussion, I was an owner of CWHP on the 9th of July, I would know it's not doing well, they're probably going to lower it, I should get rid of it as quick as I possibly can before the lower becomes official. And so you can sort of predict the future and stay ahead of the curve as long as you have your updates on this channel turned on and you look at them immediately. If you pay attention to this channel, you could, for example, pay 200,000 for an item that's in discussion, and then tomorrow, because it was in discussion, they decided to raise it, it could be worth 210,000. It's just free value. Proofs are just good trades people send in, or bad trades people send in, asking the Rallymon's valuers to raise or lower an item. If we see in this case, this guy got 100 KOP on the CW Ultimates. It looks like he didn't accept it, so he's asking that the Rallymon's valuers increase the value of that item. If you ever want to check the proofs of an item, you can just Control F while you're on this page and type in Ice Falk. And so you can see how Ice Falk is doing currently. I need to mention something here about the proof system. I'm not saying it's a bad system, but it is definitely a skewed one. To demonstrate what I mean by skewed system, let's look at the proofs for CF, of which I currently own 4. I have owned at least one CF for a long time. I'm not bragging, I just need to demonstrate that I know pretty much what CF is getting and what it has been getting. If we look at this guy's proof here on the right, claiming he got a 40 KOP, it looks like it was a completed trade, but now I'm conflicted because I've owned 4 CFs, I've owned them for several months, and I have never gotten an offer this good ever. Not a single one of them. So does CF get 40 KOPs or not? Well, to explain what happened here, let's go back to elementary school or middle school when we were learning about the scientific method. When we were talking about analysis of experimental data in science, what did they say? They said it needs to be repeatable. The experiment needs to be repeatable. If it's not repeatable, it might just be a one-off thing that sort of just happened by accident. It was just a happy accident. So with proofs, if there's 1 or 2 40 KOPs on this CF item, it might not be indicative of CF getting that much in actuality. It might just be a sort of accident. However, if it's a recurring theme that people are getting 40k over and over and over again, it is probably indicative that CF is getting that. There's one other slight problem with proofs that I'm going to show you here with a different example. You can see here that this person got a 73k OP on their front stand with Poison Horns. It's a really good trade. But we need to consider that this could be anomalous, and it also could be the case that they only proofed it in the first place because it was so impressive. It is definitionally anomalous compared to what an item normally gets, and they only proofed it because they were so blown away with how cool it was, and so it skews a little bit more towards the dramatic. It also has been the case in the past that people have faked proofs. You know, they'll accept a crazy trade to get an item raised and then undo it afterwards. Rallymon's is usually pretty good about weeding those out. If they detect that there's a fake trade, they won't take it into consideration, but it is also another thing to think about when we're deciding how much faith we should put in this entire proofing system. Basically, in short, if this is all going over your head, just take proofs with a grain of salt. They are not gospel. This next tip is really just a quality of life hack. It was common knowledge back in like 2015. But as time is moving on, I'm learning more and more with the new generation of traders that it's not actually common knowledge. They don't seem to really know about this. When you're at Trade Hangout, you can actually select someone to send a direct message to, which will cause a chat box to appear between just the two of you that won't disappear until one of you leaves the server. So if we pick a target here like this, I'm Daniel here. You do the @ and then type in their name or even just part of their name. All you need to do is type in enough of their name for the server to know who you're talking about, and then say, hey, test. And we see here that this chat box appeared at the bottom, and that will stay there. He can see it, and I can see it until one of us leaves the server. This is useful because, I mean, I AFK a lot at Trade Hangout. I assume you AFK at Trade Hangout sometimes as well. And if you need to get in contact with me, or if I needed to get in contact with you, I can just send you a message and not have to sit by your AFK body for 15 minutes. Now this next tip is a bit of a quality of life thing as well, and it's also an explanation of a little mechanic within the Roblox website you maybe have never run into before. Here we can see the red bucket of cheer, of which I'm going to send on, but I'm actually going to send mass trades to every single owner, within reason, you know, every single owner that's owned it up until a year ago, let's say. And so that's 5 pages of people. And that's a lot of profiles to send to. So here we can see at the top, I've opened the profiles of everyone on the first 2 pages of owners, but we're going to run into a problem really quickly, and it has to do with Roblox trade bots. On Roblox, trade bots have become a massive issue. I open my trades up to everyone. I would be flooded with 300 trades by the end of the day, all of which I have to go through manually and decline because trade bots just send awful trades that aren't really even worth considering. And so as a result, people like me and people probably like these folks here turn off their trades to everyone and require that you follow them before sending the trade. We can see this guy who has membership either has the trades off completely or he requires that we follow him to send. Let's find out. Yeah, so he required us to follow him before sending, and I suspect he's not going to be the only one. We're probably going to run into that, a dozen more times or so. Here we go. So here's the problem I wanted to highlight. I've followed enough people. I've been sending trades for a couple of minutes now. I've chugged away at most of the profiles. and I followed enough people that it's actually preventing me from following anymore. You can see I'm unable to follow back here behind the box. This, I believe, is Roblox's attempt to crack down on trade bots. I'm glad they put a system like this in, but it actually can be prohibitive to people like me or people like you that want to send trades to every owner of an item. If you want to avoid the trade bots, you could turn your follows only on, or you could just turn them on when you're not around. There is software out there that auto declines bot trades immediately for you. I tend to be careful, maybe to a fault, and I don't trust those. I don't like to give anyone access to my browser that doesn't need access to my browser. You can try them if you trust them. It could be a good quality of life upgrade for you. One thing you can actually do if you're doing this the same way that I'm doing it is if you don't want to lose your spot and maybe accidentally send twice to the same owner, or you don't send to someone that would have otherwise accepted, because you get lost in the fray and closed all these tabs out, lost your spot, you can actually hold control, highlight all the tabs, and you can add them to a new group, say like Red Bucket of Cheer owners. And you can actually move these tabs as a group and even pull them out as their own window here. So that way you can minimize them and get them out of the way if that's something you want to do and not lose your progress or lose your spot as you make progress through the pages of owners. And that concludes this intermediate guide, folks. Thanks for watching. Be sure to look out for my advanced guide that's coming on later on down the line. And if you haven't seen my beginner guide, be sure to look out for that too. Remember, trading is about having fun. Remember to have fun. Be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.